So now what about Yocto? So this is a little complicated today. Today we don't have a way in Visual Studio to build on one machine and deploy on another. So effectively what I've done, or what I'm going to show you, is a solution where I've got two Linux projects where one is an application and one is a makefile. The application one, I'm going to override the x64 project defaults to use a Yocto cross-compiler and a sysroot on a build machine. I've done this in Windows Subsystem for Linux before, or it could be, you know, another remote Linux machine, but Windows Subsystem will work. And then I've got a post-build event that's going to take and copy the output of that x64 project to the ARM configuration of that same build project. And then the makefile project is going to grab that output and copy it to a remote ARM device. It's kind of convoluted, but what it does is it lets me work in one project with my source, compile it on an x64 machine, and then the other project picks up the output and pushes it to the remote ARM machine. And then, now the right way to do this, I think, would be to use CMake and proper toolchain file for cross-compile, and then use tasks to copy it to the ARM output device. But I don't quite have all that set up yet. But let's go ahead and take a look at this. Now, this project is actually posted on GitHub. There's actually quite a bit of documentation on this one on that site, on my personal GitHub, which is linked here. The project that's there does not show a Yocto SDK. It shows a Linaro SDK, just because Linaro seemed a little more accessible because you could target any random Raspberry Pi with that. So that's what that one shows you, but I'm going to show you one right now that uses the Yocto SDK from Toradex. So let's go here. Let's open a solution. Oops. Go to my desktop. This is the one I want. So here in my solution, I've got my two projects. You can see here I'm configured for x64. What I want to show you is on the project properties. This was configured for a different machine. The reason this looks this way is because that machine was defined on a different machine than the one I'm running this on right now. But at any rate, what I really want to show you is here, under all options, you can see all of these additional options that I'm passing to the compiler, including this sysroot. So this sysroot is a sysroot that came from the Yocto SDK. So you can see what it's actually using there for that. And then you can see that even for the C++ compiler, that I've overridden that to not use the default C++ compiler, but I'm using the one that came from the Yocto SDK. And then I mentioned about the build events. On the post-build event, what I'm doing is I'm copying the output. When we build in Visual Studio with the project system, we actually copy the output of the remote build process back to the local Windows machine so that you can stash it away or do other things you may need to do with it, and so that you can actually get the symbols back for debugging in particular. And so in this project, what I'm doing is I'm copying that binary from the x64 project because I know it's actually an ARM project, and I'm copying it to the ARM configuration of the project. Because when I debug, I'm actually going to switch. I would build with this configuration, but I would debug with this configuration. And if I come back here, oops. That comes in here where you can see here on my ARM configuration, I have a different machine because that would be this Toradex board, this little IMX6 board, is to where the app would run, but I don't want to build it here. I actually built it on the Windows Subsystem for Linux locally, and I'm going to debug it on this board. Now my other project is this one, and what this one does is it copies the outputs from that other project to the board. So this is just a dumb project that's copying files over there. And lastly, what I want to show you about this project is that it's wired up so that things go as smoothly as they can. So in project dependencies, The Cross-Compile project itself doesn't have anything, but the copy files project actually depends on the Cross-Compile project. And then on the configuration, if I look at the x64 one, you'll notice that I have the copy files one set to depend on the x64 one, but for the ARM variant, because I know that I need to copy to an ARM device with that one. So I've helped myself as much as I can by configuring things so that when I edit my files in the x64 and I build, and then I copy the files to the remote ARM device, and then all I have to do back here is switch to ARM, and then I can debug my code. But I don't have this all set up to actually show you that right now, but that's the idea for that.